Today on the Texas Tribune Weekend Insider. In South Texas, some women are relying on medication they can purchase over the counter in unregulated Mexican pharmacies for their birth control. They believe these pills, commonly used as an ulcer drug, will help them abort a pregnancy without ever having to set foot in a clinic. As colleges and universities around the state prepare for their first fall semester, meningitis vaccine requirements that stymied many of them in the spring are causing similar problems now. This is because there has not been a chance to make key changes to the law that even its supporters are pushing for. You can find full versions of these stories and more this weekend at texastribune.org.
Well, South Texas has a high concentration of Hispanic women, a lot of Catholic people, a lot of immigrants. And what's happening is that at the state level, they've already cut family planning by quite a bit, 2/3 during this last session. The cuts are taking effect now. So access to reproductive health services is already difficult. Access to abortions is even more difficult. In South Texas, there's only a handful of clinics that actually provide the procedure abortions to women. So what's happening is that a lot of women who are getting pregnant are trying to find cheaper, more private ways in order to terminate the pregnancy. And what's happening is that they're crossing the border, they're going into Mexico to pharmacies that are unregulated, where they are able to access Cytotec, which is also commonly referred to as misoprostol. And it's a drug that essentially forces whatever is in the uterus. It empties the uterus out. And so these women are taking this drug, but we have to remember that these drugs are unregulated. A lot of the pharmacies in Mexico, these are not people who have pharmacy degrees or are licensed to dispense the drug. They can just do it because Mexican law allows them to. And so these women get instructions sometimes for, take one pill for 18 days, take 50 pills, sometimes take a whole bottle. And there's no uniform instructions because abortions are not legal in Mexico. So they come back here to the US and they're still pregnant. The bottom line is that misoprostol or Cytotec itself, the medical community has said this is not a dangerous drug. We shouldn't be worried about women having access to this. But this is an issue about women having access to abortions in general, which is a legal procedure in the United States. And within this population down in South Texas, there are issues with perception, there are issues with women not being able to afford the procedure itself. So the medical community is kind of warning the drug it's not dangerous, but we need to think about educating women about their options so that they don't resort to an underground method, for a procedure that they could get legally and safely in a clinic.
So last year, Texas became the first state to require that all students, not just on-campus students, get vaccine to guard against meningitis. And that created a shortage for some colleges in the state that weren't prepared, and a sort of an extra cost on top of the already rising price of going to college that some students just didn't want to, pay up. Last year, colleges just sort of muddled through it. Some sort of had to bend the rules a little bit and let unvaccinated students on campus. Some had to turn students away. Each school had to find their own way to make it work. The Department of State Health Services also came in and reduced the cost of the vaccine a little bit, which is something they're not doing this fall. There's some fixes that people think would make the process easier, but a lot of those are legislative fixes that can't be done until the legislature's in session. Right now, the requirement applies to students under age 30, and really the health professionals seem to think that you really only need to vaccinate them up to age 22. So if you bring down that age requirement, that cuts the number of affected students almost in half. And so making that change would be a huge boon to people that want to make the process easier, but you need the legislature to do that. In the meantime, they're just going to do what they can. A lot more students are aware that this is a requirement, so they're seeing a lot more students come in already vaccinated, and students that aren't, the cost could be an issue, and that's just something that they're going to have to deal with.